we're going to just wrap up what we learned today, which is always one of my favorite parts because I love to hear what resonated with people. What did we learn? What did we not learn? What do we want to unlearn, right? And so I really appreciate you guys being here. I hope that you had an incredible first day. We've been getting some really great feedback overall, and there's just really nothing like being with our LGS family, unless it's being with your LGS family and having ice cream as well. So that's why I'm here as well. No, I'm just kidding. So we're going to go ahead and close the door. And what we're going to do for this last session is we brought up some of the panelists from the workshops and from the different meetings today, and we're going to get their takeaway on what they learned today. And then we're going to open it up to you guys. We want to hear about what you learned. So I have some questions for each of you. And so let's see how this goes. Now, not everybody was able to stay. So these are all of the panelists that are supposed to be up there, but they're not all here anymore. So we have the cream of the crop subset here. And so we're going to get started. So what I want to do is I want to ask each of you, and we'll start with the only gentleman on this panel, or used to be the only gentleman on this panel, Rob Moss, who led a session today. So Rob, tell us the name of the session that you led. And I want you to tell me, in a couple of minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, what were 2 things that really resonated with you in your session?
So our session today was on, this is going to be hard, seizure types, seizure action plans, and using devices. So it was a really cool conversation that happened. We tried to make it more interactive a little bit. I think maybe we fell short a little bit on that, but we had a lot of QR codes. We had takeaways, so we had some stuff on the table. But I think what I learned, what was most exciting to me to maybe learn and see was how important it is to bring people together who have experiences with this stuff, with people who maybe don't have so much experiences with that, and then share the knowledge base to help people with the journey. So I think that might have been one of the more important things that came out of our session. I think a lot of people were talking about what their experiences were with devices and
That's
data
great.
sharing.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. And so Rob has a child with an adult now with a rare epilepsy, and it's really true that we learn more from each other, I think, in so many ways about what worked and what didn't. So I really appreciate you sharing that. And if you didn't get a chance to catch Rob's session, or if there's a session up here that you missed, we did record all of these, right? Because I know you had a choice between a couple of different great options, right? Not like running for president, right? Where you have a choice between maybe not 2 great options. That was not our workshops. It was a choice between many great options. So they've all been recorded, and that was not going to get me fired. Where's she's not in here, right? The president's not in here. I see you, Karen. Sorry about that. Anyway, so I appreciate that. Now we're going to go with Jamie on the end. She came late, so she's going to get the next person, so if you want to pass. Jamie, the question is, tell us a little bit about the session that you led. Just tell us the name. And in about 2 minutes, tell us what was one thing that really resonated with you.
So the session I was a part of was the understanding the unique needs of young adults with LGS as they go through the transition and transfer process. And I think that the thing that really resonated with me anytime that I'm part of a transition discussion is that there's a lot of shared experiences, but then every family brings kind of one additional piece that is so critical that they had to figure out when they were working through this process with their loved one. And I think that the overlap is so important. We talked about the resources in creating your own community and reaching out to other parents and other advocates. But as a person that I go through this experience from a different standpoint, I really appreciate the shared experience, but then also the kind of pearls that all of you as parents and advocates of your loved ones and young adults with rare epilepsy, the things that I learn every time that then I can share with my families. And so I just really appreciate that part of the experience. So thank you all.
Thank you so much. We're going to go down the line. Now, I know that you co-led that session with Lori, who's down here on the end. So, Lori, you're going to go last, though, because there's a reason for this. Trust me, I have a plan, right? Nothing could ever go wrong when someone says that to you, right? Trust me, I have a plan, right? Lori's like, oh, dear. So we're going to go now to Beth. So, Beth, same question. Tell us your session name and one thing that you took away. Two, and I had told you two before, so if you have two.
Now I have to choose.
You know, you can
You're
tell
making
us
me
two.
choose?
You can tell us two, yeah.
Okay.
We're flexible here at the LGS Foundation.
Okay. I'm Beth Scheidley. I am a genetic counselor at Boston Children's. I'm here with my coworker, Jillian Prinzing, also a genetic counselor at Children's in the neurology department. And we led a discussion called Genetics Made Simple, where we described genetic testing concepts and how to interpret a result and kind of issues in testing. And I think the number one thing I came away with was we're really privileged at Boston Children's what we're able to offer and the amount of time that we are afforded to talk with families. And so people who are able to come to Boston, it seems like have an experience that maybe not all families are getting around the country, around the world. And so we still have a lot of work to do, I think, in terms of expanding and improving education about genetic testing and access to genetic testing. And I'm just going to say really quickly the second thing, which is that one of the families asked whether we had some sort of a checklist or a guide about genetic testing that families could take to providers, right? Because not all of their providers seem to be knowledgeable or weren't bringing up the option of genetic testing. And so we thought that's a great idea, and we're going to do it.
Nice.
Going off of that, it came up twice actually in our morning session and then during our afternoon session that we really need to improve the way or find a better way for families to be able to share information about their loved one with a condition, whether that has a genetic finding or not. So right now it's really easy for clinicians to do that, but it's very difficult for families to share that information outside of Facebook with clinicians. So that could maybe lead to literature being published or shared more widely to better help other families. So that's something that we're going to try and look into and see if we can find a way to do that.
I love it.
Okay, my name is Jennifer Griffin, and our session was called Early Years. It was a lot of. It was a long
years
one.
Navigating the medical system, school, and therapies. Who named
That.
these things? Was that
Thank
me?
you.
Yep.
Yes, it was great. It was a small group, but what I think my takeaway from all of this, it's just always comes down to the same thing for me, and that's that we're all about, what we have to do is just completely build a team, and it's your IEP team, it's your medical team, it's your life team, and in order to just get anything positive happening for our loved ones, it's going to be more than just us. And I think as caregivers, we take on that, we take on all the care, and sometimes it's referred to as the burden of care. And so we think that if you build a team, maybe the burden part of it will somehow, lighten a little bit. So, and then we did a fun activity, and maybe Diana will share a little bit more about what that was.
So in case you couldn't tell, I presented with Jen. I'm Diana Smaglick, and I am the mom to Billy that I think most of you have met because he's introduced himself to just about everybody. Wave, Bill. So yes, we did a fun activity. We did one-page descriptions and talked about all the great ways that they can be used to support not only our loved ones, to introduce to friends and to family, but also to be used in medical emergencies and all kinds of difficult situations. And it was a lot of fun. I think it got everybody talking. People shared experiences, they shared concerns, and I think it was great. And we also talked about not forgetting yourself and not forgetting your family, the rest of your family in this LGS journey, because sometimes we get a little swamped and it's a little hard to think forward. So it can be a little overwhelming at times.
I thought there was going to be something special when you
It's
got
like
to
Nickelodeon, where like slime is gonna like fall out of the ceiling or something. No, I'm just kidding.
Second
No,
question?
I want you to go ahead now, and
Okay.
then I'll
And
then
then
I'll
you'll do
surprise you.
you'll do your
Yeah.
special surprise. I can't wait. So I had the great privilege of presenting with Dr. Jamie Twanow. I said your name wrong. It's Twano. Did I? Oh, I did it right the first time. And also with Karen Groff. And we talked about, Karen shared her story, and then as well, Jamie went through the medical transition, and then we also introduced a new resource that is available to the community, which is the Care Binder. So make sure you go, this is a plug for the Care Binder. Make sure you go up onto the LGS website to download and take a look at that. But also in what Jamie was saying, that, you know, it looks, transition and long-term care planning is so complicated, and it's so different for each family, even though you are all on this journey. All your journeys are so different and unique. And so planning in advance, really starting those conversations early with your healthcare professionals and thinking about it is going to help you be much more successful. So that was really a huge takeaway. And then also thinking about having a plan in place when you're not in a crisis is really, really important. So those, I think, are the most important takeaways from my.
Great, thank you. The thing that struck me, especially listening here, and I love that we're crawling under the table. Feel free to crawl under the table. It's totally allowed here, by the way. Let me know if you need any help there. No, you're perfect. Just raise your hand if you need a hand. We'll come and crawl with him. It's perfect. But no, I think that what really struck me, especially listening to all of you and just going throughout today, was the fact that all of us have come from so many disciplines. All of these speakers up here and the ones who had to leave early, we're not paying anybody to do this. They're working on this because that's what they've chosen to do with their lives. And if you're like me, if you could get out of the LGS world, you would, right? It's a club that none of us want to be in, but it's such a beautiful group of people that have come. So thank you for offering your expertise and your knowledge and sharing what you thought was really important, for the sessions that you led and the education that you allowed to happen today. And I want to call out each one of you because, and Jamie, I'll get you last, but Rob, he has an incredible resource that he works on. He works with Seizure Tracker, which many of us use as an online app to track our seizures. And he's so focused in Seizure Tracker of what is going to be useful to us as families, right? And I love that I can, pull down my daughter's seizure graphs and diaries and a medication chart and just show them to the doctor on my phone. But he does that out of the passion of his heart, right? And we have Beth here, and why can I never remember your name? I keep wanting to call you Allison, Jenny, Jillian, feel free to elbow me later. But no, Jillian and Beth, who see an unmet need here and want to go back to Boston Children's and create a resource. I mean, that's incredible, right? And then you have Jen and Diane, and these are two women who have adults who have been on this journey, and they are there and have dedicated their time to helping the people who have come here with 4 and 5 and 6-year-olds, right? And the young children who are going through all of those horrible places that we all visited of, blaming ourselves. It was our fault that they started having seizures. And oh my gosh, how do we navigate? We all remember, for those of us that have been doing this a while, how hard it was. And they are dedicated to doing that. And then now we have Jamie and Lori. And Lori's been in our community for a while. Jamie, you're new, but I'm so glad you guys connected because we have the medical transition specialist, and then we just have the work that Lori's done. But I want to call out Lori for a second too, because Lori, we've worked with for a number of years, and she's the same way. She's like, I see a need in your community, so we're going to create a resource. So if you have worked, if you guys have received any of the sibling kits out there, the kits that have been put together by caregivers for caregivers, by siblings, for siblings, to draw attention to the plight of our siblings. Lori really helped our community to bring that together with a bunch of other rare organizations. And the newest one was this transition of care binder. And so if you guys didn't get a chance to get this, I would have loved to have this when we were transitioning. And there's a lot of transition. It starts at about the age of 12. And it goes on, to when they become an adult at the age of 18, and then when they, have to leave school, right? And they have to go out into the world, maybe in a transition program. And then there is a transition, after they leave that program. And there's a transition that I'm facing right now with my 31-year-old, where she is going from being an adult to being an aging adult. And now what do I do, right? And Karen talked about it this morning, our president, about our worst fear is that we're going to lose Savannah, in our lifetime. And our worst fear is that Savannah's going to lose us. It's a double whammy fear. And this binder was put together by caregivers, for caregivers who are facing that entire transition. And it's a collection of our knowledge. And the worst woman that really put this together was Lori. So... So if you didn't get your binder, it is online, and Lori was really the conduit to put this together and make it a resource that's available, and just we info dumped all over her. And now she's working with Jamie on this, who runs a transition program, and we're going to begin, to work through some of the issues. So, like those of us that have older adults with LGS are sort of paving the way for you guys, and trying to figure out what do we do with our children, and where do they fit, and how do we make it better. So hopefully as the young ones grow up that you'll have more answers than we did. So thank you so much for this panel. And now I'm going to try to get all of you to weigh in now. Let's see if this works. We do have mic runners in the back. So if you want to weigh in, just raise your hand and a mic will come. But this morning we were challenged by our board president to think about a couple of things. And I want you to just think about today, but I want to ask just a couple of these questions. So if you are willing, and I'm going to start with you guys here on the panel, but tell me one thing today that, one action that you want to take after you have learned. And Beth and Jillian, you don't get to answer this because you already have a job. That's enough. Go do that. No, and if you think of something else, but tell me an action you're going to take after you leave here that was just something that was so meaningful for you. And I'm not going to call on you. Just raise your hand or just pick up a mic if you want to answer that. And Jillian and Beth, I was kidding. You can respond if you want. But any volunteers? An action you're going to take based on something you learned today, you heard today, someone you met today. You're going to go buy some Haagen-Dazs ice cream or a Snickers ice cream bar because you had one, and now you're just, you have to have more.
So I had the pleasure of meeting Diana's husband, Paul, who actually has a bunch of tasks for me, apparently. So I get a real benefit out of talking to people about needs and coming to conferences like this, and then and getting feedback on things that can either be improved or new additions to things. So we always come to a conference like this with the idea of we get to go home and develop a longer to-do list. So
I love that. Yeah. I know you see, and I love that. Did anybody else want to go before I open it up? If anyone in the audience has an action they're going to take based on something they heard, something they learned, something they saw, something they did today, what action is that? What are you going to go home and do? Right here. She's going to go crawl under the table. Okay, Diana, you go first, and then we'll have, I'm just teasing.
I was going to say,
Hi,
I'm going to finally do the learn from every patient. Because I've been putting it off just because. So I really need to do that.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I love that. Apparently it takes 5 minutes. And if you have an adult or a kid, apparently it takes 3 times 5 minutes because you have so many hospitals that you've been to. You have to, but it really is so easy. Phase 1, it's like go in and punch in every hospital that your loved one's been seen at. They will go get your medical records. They will upload them all in a PDF for you. They will give you an interface, and they're beginning to use machine learning and AI to parse out what your medical journey has been. And then if you choose, that data will be made available for researchers. So thank you.
And it's so important.
It's so important. And he agrees.
Yes.
He totally agrees, right?
And I got 38 years to remember.
Right. I know. And hopefully there's a list somewhere. So right here.
That I will be I'm more reassured that I'm doing the right thing for my son. We are very newly diagnosed. We are 11 months diagnosed epilepsy and 4 with LGS, and that I feel more confident that I am advocating in the right path for my son when we felt very alone and lost with this new diagnosis, and that I am doing the right thing for him. And everything that I've heard today was I'm checking off. I've been doing it, and so I feel like a better mom because I've been feeling like I wasn't doing enough.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that when we start out on this journey, we feel like everything we're doing is wrong and other people know better. But the reality is we know our loved ones. You know your son better than anybody. And you're the one that's going to fight for him and do what's best for him, right? So learning that is a part of the journey. But thank you for sharing that.
Also, I just want to say that when I talked about all the different circles of support that we have and, the medical and the IEP team and everything, I forgot the most important one, which is the LGS Foundation and the other caregivers that you're meeting, because now you have kind of like a built-in support system, and we are there for our families all the time. And, that's it. That's right. You agree? Did you agree with me, Billy? Okay, good. As long as you agree with me, then it's okay. All good.
Because he's 38.
Well, you're 38 years old. You've lived a little, you know stuff.
We never know what's going to happen here at the foundation.
I know you're a wise old man, Billy.
A wise old.
He's an LGS expert. He's a party animal too, right?
He's a party animal. Oh my gosh. Who was first, right or left? Right, okay.
They can go.
Just start talking if you have a mic in your hand.
Hi. So I have a question. I know you were telling us, to let you guys know if we had any tasks that we were going to complete that was inspired by you guys. But I have more of an idea for Lori for a task to complete, maybe, possibly, just a think tank. So it's very popular for some of us to, you have a neurologist. They've dedicated their lives to neurology. Sometimes we don't always agree with their vision, our journey that they want us to take. So we want a second opinion. And all these years I've been doing this, families go to Boston. They go, all over to the different children's hospitals. Who works with LGS? Who's part of your board? What neurologists would you guys tell us, work with you and help with research and are about this journey of LGS? And the second part would be how we would go about setting up that second opinion out of state at these specialist hospitals. Boston's could probably tell us because, I don't know if you guys have input on how we could do that to get the second opinions and third opinions. Sorry, that's just, sorry, Lori, I'm not trying to give you more work, but you did such a good job on this care plan thing. It inspired me.
Lori for president. Lori for more work. Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to use your mic? Turn it on. Turn it on.
Testing. There you go. Yeah. Whoa. I feel like this is for the LGS Foundation, and you do already have a list of physicians, correct?
We do. So we do have a couple of things that we've started on this. So the first one is going onto our website and looking at the comprehensive care centers that are out there. We know that our loved ones need comprehensive care. And we have a list of doctors that were actually, so there's a list of comprehensive care centers, which are the centers that we know that they have, psych, and they've got genetics, and they've got epilepsy surgery, and they've got neurology, like they've got a comprehensive care center. But there's also on that page a list of doctors that have been recommended by somebody who has LGS. And says this person knows what LGS is, and they've been a good partner with us. And so I think that's a start. I think the second start is going into our 7,000 member caregiver group and asking, right? Hey, who lives in South Carolina and knows a good doctor, right? We're struggling. I mean, I live in San Diego. We're seen at UC San Diego, an incredible hospital, and I still don't feel like our 31-year-old has transitioned. Right. And so, I think this is a problem that we're going to have to solve. I think going out and finding a second and third opinion, we put together something called the About LGS Treatment Kit. And we have a bunch of, we call it Kit Palooza at the LGS Foundation. We have sibling kits if you want to learn, more about ensuring that your siblings are well cared for and thinking about their needs, because often they get left out when a crisis hits, because we're trying to keep our LGS loved ones alive. We also have new family welcome kits. So if you're new to LGS or you're new to the LGS Foundation, you can order these kits. They're free. They're online. And we just created our About LGS treatment kit, which is not kind and gentle. It's like an accordion folder of everything you need to know about LGS treatments. And within there, there's information about talking to your doctor. And I think one thing that we can think about doing, Jen, is adding something in there about how do you go about getting a second opinion? How do you go about getting a third opinion? How do you go about finding the doctors that are knowledgeable about LGS? So those are really great suggestions. So we're working on that, and then we'll find something that Lori can help us with it, because she's free now. The binder's together, so now she's just looking for work.
I always have a list going on. I always have a list going on.
I know,
what are we going to
that's
take
the
on
problem.
next?
Like when you get Lori's wheels spinning, the next thing you know, we've got a big project. And
She's incredible.
Yeah.
All of you guys
Watch
are
out, I'm
incredible.
coming for you.
So I want to take this question next, but then after this one, I also want to open it up to, Jillian,
I was just
too.
going to quickly say, if you're like currently in the process of trying to get a second opinion, I only know very briefly, I'm not an expert, from working with our program coordinator. Insurance plays a big role in where you can and can't go. So reaching out to them first is a first step. A lot of our families determine where they go from a list based on insurance. Especially if it's out of state. And then if you find out from there's no one you want to go to, reach out to that facility specifically, because our program coordinator knows options. So if we don't take your insurance, you might be able to pay like a set price instead, or they can give you an estimate and things like that. Or there's other programs that we might be able to apply for. Every hospital has different ones. So unfortunately, I think it's state-based, insurance-based, but just a way to start if you want to start like tomorrow or something like that.
Thank you, Jillian. That was perfect. Thank you for your patience.
We have two people online that wanted to share what they learned today as well.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so our first person says that they're planning to share the information they learned today with their local epilepsy support group. And then someone else is going to go online and download the information about the care binder.
That is fantastic. I love that. That's perfect. And if you didn't get your binder, they are online. So there's information out at the LGS table, I believe, and there's some binders floating around still. So if you didn't get one, that's fantastic. I'm going to keep answering this question and keep going around, but I also want to open it up to one more question, which is, tell us what else you were impacted by today. And it could be a positive impact. It could be something that you weren't positively impacted by, something that it's just something on your heart that you want to share. And let us know what you thought about the day. Raise your hand and we're going to go to Jackie now.
So I guess my two are connected. So the one I wanted to mention when you're talking about the centers that I learned today was about the pediatric, it's PERC.
PERC.
The Pediatric Epilepsy Research Coalition. Something I think it stands
Consortium.
for.
Yep.
Consortium.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Coalition works too.
Yeah. And so that was new. I didn't know that existed before. And then there's a list of centers. So I was like, oh, well, I could see what centers are there that then have all the same folks that are part of this coalition and look for my care there or ask my questions there. And then similarly, so Dr. Perry's talk where he mentioned that, I thought that was one of the most impactful sessions for me today. Aside from Landon's legacy, obviously, that was pretty impactful this morning.
Was that the surgical session about surgeries?
Yes, it was. Yeah. It was. It was really, it answered a lot of questions that I had, and then also gave me thoughts about, what questions I should ask next.
That's great. I love to hear that. There was a hand up here. There he is right there. And anybody, feel free to raise your hands if there's something that you want to share. It can be an action you think you're going to take. It can be, something that you felt was really positive or something that you felt like, maybe you want to never hear again. That's okay too. Yeah.
I'm Diana's husband, one of the panel members up there. Hi. First coming to this conference, okay, should be interesting, what I'm going to do, what I'm going to learn and everything, but so far it's been kind of life-changing for me, especially on challenging behaviors, and I learned a lot in that class and that workshop. The only problem I couldn't take away from learning stuff about the nervous system and how people to deal with. I got Billy pretty well. It's my wife is the problem. I'm a calm, cool guy, just laid back. My wife is pretty intense. Oh, I'll call her out. She knows, but I met some great people. I met with Rob a little bit, very excited on what he's working in. And of course, I spent like 20 minutes this morning. It's like, oh, we can do this, we can do that, we can change this, and do all kinds of make it more friendly. But anyways, I met so many wonderful people here, and also got some word of advice for everybody. Even every day, maybe a challenge with your person and stuff like that. But on the big picture, they're kind of our teachers and how do we work through life. And also need to see them not through the disability or what issue. You need to see them as the individual person and also on a spiritual level, what kind of person. And they can be our teachers and guiding light in our own lives. Which I've seen so many women have made so much difference in the LGS community of how our special individuals has changed the moms' lives in a direction to help others. I think that's pretty cool. I see that with my wife every day, and all you have the same look as my wife does. So.
I love that. I love it. Thank you. At first, I thought that was going to be like can we get a challenging behaviors and spouses? And I was like, ooh, sign me up for that. If any of you have met my husband, I feel like I need to take that class too. But then he went a different direction. But I remember when we were sitting down, many people in this room too, where we were trying to come up with our vision for the LGS Foundation. And we looked at other people's visions, and it was like, we have to end LGS, and we have to stop it, and we have to cure it. And I'm like, but I don't want to live in a world where there's no Savannah, and there's no Bobby, and there's no Tegan, right? And there's, I love, there's no Julie, right? I love these LGS individuals that I've met, and I love how they've touched me. What I want is a world without the suffering that comes with it, the suffering of the caregivers, the suffering of our loved ones, the suffering that is sometimes needless, like the arguing with insurance companies, right? Like sort of the needless boundaries that are put up in front of us. And so, I think it's okay to be different, and they are, I think they're living their best lives, and they teach us so much. And it's just really about recognizing that, putting them at the forefront, understanding what they bring. We have someone in our community who said to my husband and I within the last couple of years that people like Savannah, because they don't work and because they're collecting state income, that she's a burden to society. And I think Savannah has done more for science and society than any person I have ever met in my life. And would she rather be the scientist on the flip side of it? Absolutely. But if you're going to base value only on whether or not you pay taxes and you work and whether or not you get state government aid, then you've set your values completely wrong. And so I think we see that here. And so I really appreciate you raising your points. Another one right here.
Thank you. I thought we did a pretty good job of planning our transition, right, from all the financial side of things. We got a trust set up, and we got, what would happen if we were gone, who would take care. But I never thought to put what we're doing all into a binder and go over it with that person. So my plan is to go over that so that, it would be, they would know what we do every day and what needs to happen to continue that. And so thank you so much for putting that out there. And then the thing that touched me most today was the poem that Julie read off of her Landon's legacy. Yeah, that really touched me. Thanks.
Thank you. I love that. No, I appreciate that. And I also need to write down everything we do. So we'll have a write down party. Tony, you and I can sit down and go, why don't we think of this sooner? Oh, back here.
Here I am.
Hi.
So my name's Jen. I'm from Pennsylvania, if I haven't met y'all already. I think one of the biggest things that I'm going to take away is there's somebody on the other end that really exists that I've been trying to get help with. Like, I went to the presentation this morning of Danny did, and I didn't know what I was walking into. I'm going to the stages of seizures, like the different types, and our family has been able to go through our day more relaxed, if that's even a term in our lives anymore. But because of them, we still have our Damien, that we haven't lost him to SUDEP. And it's just amazing. Brian reached out to me today, and I just was heartfelt because I'm like, you are my Damien. Like, sorry, buddy, there's two of you. But just his facial expression, his lure into your eyes, and just looking at textures and things like that, I'm like, Damien isn't the only one going through this, that there are amazing individuals who just have a voice to be heard, and that's through all of us.
I love that. Thank you. I think Brian ended up on stage with us last year, didn't he? That was so much fun. We never know what's going to happen. We love it. Right here. Ben.
I wanted to, I think it's amazing that you convinced us to come to the desert in the middle of the summer. So it's been 25 years since we started dealing with all those terms we never wanted to learn, like hypsarrhythmia. And when we first heard that stuff, we were so alone, right? So we live in a huge city, Los Angeles. And the only place we found someone who knew it was through, they had a chat group, like ICQ, something like that. And this woman said, like, it was like the old days, like animated balloons. Like, it was so what you've created is just leagues beyond that. And I think what I'm struck by is how isolated on like our own island we felt for so many of those years. And even when we would find a therapeutic preschool, you know, they just had the regular stuff, like, you know, some flavor of autism or something. So even within that island of a specialized preschool of 10 within Cedars-Sinai Psychiatric Division, we were on our own. And so what you have helped create is a community where everyone knows the deal, and I really appreciate that. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Ben. I appreciate that. And I think it's all of us that have contributed to this community that we've made. I mean, I wish we had had something years ago, and I've learned so much. And I don't think Savannah's still alive in many ways because of this community and the support. And I'm not in that depression hole that I was in for a decade, you know, because of this community and because of other people. And actually, the very first mom, I don't know, Mary, I see you, there you are. The very first mom I ever met about 3 or 4 years into Savannah's journey, who had a daughter with LGS, is here at this meeting. And I don't know if she knows how much she helped me. And I remember when I met her, I couldn't stop like petting her arm. So I'm sure she thought I was like a psycho, right? Like, oh great, there's this woman just keeps touching me. But you know, when you're sitting in that doctor's office and you're surrounded by all of these team members and these specialists, and you know, and you've got the nurses and you've got the doctors and you've got the pharmacists and the scheduling, and they all have support networks. They all have their people that are behind them. And you're sitting there completely alone and isolated, feeling like you're the only people on the planet with this disease. You know, they have their professional societies. You guys have professional societies. You have your unions. You have your, infrastructures, your institutions. But when you're just there as the patient family, you're so alone. And I love this idea that you have the foundation behind you. And all of us make that foundation up, right? I mean, every single one of you that have been a part of it, and we try to make it bite-sized, right? It's this concept of many hands make light work, like my grandma used to say. Like, if the one thing that Melanie here can do is talk to a mom about the surgery that she's already experienced with her daughter, Tegan, and that's all she can do, ever. She's contributed and made the work lighter. And I think each of us do that. Each of us do that in our piece. Some people mentor other families. Some people, bring the joy. Some people educate. Some people go on to get degrees. Some people donate. Some people hold fundraisers. Some people run mics all over the room, right? And each of us bring a different piece. And even our sound gentlemen in the back, they were like, I was talking to one of them. He said, I learned a lot about LGS. And I said, one thing that you can do from this meeting is go online and get seizure first aid trained for free, because 1 in 10 people are going to have a seizure in their lifetime. And wouldn't it be awesome if everybody knew what a seizure was and everybody didn't see our kids have seizures and freak out, right? So everybody brings to that community, and that's one of the things I love. So we have about 6 minutes left, and we've got another one right here and another one back there. I'm not sure who was first. Jamie was first. Okay, so let's start back here on the right.
Okay.
Hang on just a second. You guys are so patient.
So if we're taking a vote on the next location, I definitely vote for San Diego. But anyway, I have a question for you all. We often find ourselves in our medical providers' offices, leaving those offices, or when we're inpatient in the hospital, having a consult from a specialist, and that specialist really has no clue what LGS is about. And they really don't understand the idea that it's so involved and that it affects everything. A lot of times I think we get the sense that it's just sort of a side note, right? This is a patient with LGS and, blah, blah, whatever else, right? And not that it actually does have an impact on all of the other systems that we're looking at, especially when there's an issue that has brought us to the hospital, right? What would you all recommend in terms of information that we could share, if there's any kind of a resource out there that I'm not aware of that's like a quick reference guide? I know a lot of times physicians don't like to be sort of, explained to in terms of, well, this is how this condition affects, I've seen it affect my child sometimes, that, that approach you have to be careful about that approach. So I'm just curious if there's any kind of materials or resources that you would really recommend that would be really helpful to just kind of provide a quick overview.
Okay, this is a great question. Okay, you have another binder. This one's empty. And Beth, you and I had a great conversation about this earlier, so you should start. But what is it that a caregiver can take to their doctor that might influence their doctor to understand more about LGS? And as a genetics person, I think you can speak from that point of view really well.
I think from the genetics perspective, what we had been talking about was some sort of a checklist or a guide, and I'd have to think through how it would work, but I would imagine it would be something like a list of questions that a parent takes to their healthcare provider, right? Has my child had genetic testing? What genetic tests have they had? Or, when's the next time we might consider reanalysis? What genetic tests are they eligible for? Because it seems like there's a lot of providers who aren't offering genetic testing or don't think it's important, especially as individuals with any kind of neurodevelopmental condition, including, LGS, other epilepsies. As they get older, it seems like it kind of falls off the radar and isn't seen as important. But I even see it in younger kids, younger families that come to Children's who've been seen by specialists in other cities who don't seem aware that there are professional practice guidelines now endorsed by the American Epilepsy Society recommending genetic testing for any individual with epilepsy of any age, with any age of onset of seizures. And I'm actually not sure that most neurologists or epileptologists are aware of that.
So if we took that in, would that be a powerful thing that a doctor would look at and read? And
I would hope so, if they know it's a practice guideline.
It's a practice guideline.
Right?
This is what you're supposed to be doing as a doctor.
Yeah,
and, are you aware that these are the recommendations from the experts? Yeah, it's great.
If you're looking for resources for, anything that you can take to your doctor's appointment, we already have them. We certainly have an LGS fact sheet, but most importantly, Tracy already mentioned it, we have this treatment guide, the treatment kit, I should say. And a lot of things in there are supposed to assist you in starting conversations with your doctors. There's information in the kit on clinical trials, SUDEP, genetic testing, all of the things that we actually, I think, as a community, don't really always hear from our doctors. So you're going to leave this meeting and you're going to go back to your doctors and you're going to ask them about something that you heard here. And it would have been nice if you'd heard it from them first, but maybe you didn't. So we need to start, obviously, in our circle of support, assisting one another in starting those conversations with their doctors and providing those resources. But order your free About LGS treatment kit through the LGS Foundation, and hopefully a lot of that information is in there.
I'm gonna interrupt because we have about a minute left, and I want to honor everybody's time. But we still have a question here, and I think this is really great. So really quick, Jamie. I know I'm so sorry. There's so much we could say.
I was just thinking that if we want to communicate, I was trying to think about the best way to communicate with doctors, and they kind of they train us how to think in a certain way. So what I was thinking is that maybe this is a job for Lori, or maybe we should collaborate. I think what we need to do is put together, there's something, you can all see your medical notes now, there's something called a review of systems. And I think that what we could do is we could put together a way that every family could create their own systemic review of systems, and it would highlight all of the different systemic impacts. And it's kind of in doctor speak, so it would be something that speaks to them in their language. And so then when you go in, you're not just listing a whole bunch of diagnoses. You're saying, this is the way it affects all of my systems. Put that in your review of systems, and then it's like a way to communicate with them on their level. So maybe
so Lori's saying there is something similar to this in here. It's like the story form.
Laura already thought of it in her amazing care navigator.
It is on. Yeah. Sorry. It's the Epilepsy Living and History form, which summarizes
sort
everything.
Of the history and do it. And I love this idea though too, Jamie, what you just said about teaching us to think the way a doctor is trained, right? And I think when we get these consensus opinion guidelines they're not really guidelines, but they're consensus opinion on the management of LGS, that will be a really powerful paper publication that we can bring into our doctors as well. So we're running out of time, but I know we have a question back here, and we've got one more over here as well. So these will be the last two, and then I want to end on one final note.
Hi, my name is Chris. I live in Denver. My daughter is 19. It's less of a question, but more goes to your original question, which was takeaways. And I did put on my to-do list to spend, I attended the Managing Behaviors track, which I do want to thank you for doing. I came specifically for that, and it was brilliant, and my brain and everything hurts right now. But I do plan to spend the 4 or 5 minutes that Eileen Divide suggested in the evening reflecting to make things better the next day. But I did also write down a couple things that she said that I went, oh, that was actually really great. One is that we have 10-second kids in a 1-second world.
Yeah.
And the other thing was that if we are not well, our child cannot be well. So speaking to caregivers, taking care of their own emotional and physical.
Thank you for sharing that. I know that was a limited session, and we hope to offer that again online. Perhaps later this year or early into next year. So if you did miss that, it's something that is really managing challenging behaviors in our loved ones and learning to deal with that. And we've heard just such great things about it. So thank you for sharing. And I love that 10-second kids, because that is so true.
I just wanted to share one quick thing about planning for your son's doctor's appointment and kind of coordinating with your doctor. One thing I've started doing for the last probably 2 years, and it seems to go really well, is a week before the appointment, I send the doctor a message in my chart. I send him the seizure tracker forms, and I say, okay, here are my concerns. Here are the things I would like to discuss. Let me know your thoughts. So that way, when we show up to the appointment, Brian's doctor already knows the things that I'm going to be questioning him about, the things that I'm concerned about, and and what's going in our life, rather than just showing up at the appointment with a stack of papers and saying, here, look, this is our problem, and making him think on the fly. So that way, I don't know if he really looks at them when I send them, or if it's like, oh, I got to see this patient in 5 minutes, let me go look at these messages. But at least he has a little bit of time to prepare and know kind of how that conversation is going to go, in the exam room. And things seem to be working really well. We're on our third hospital and third neurologist, because the other two, we didn't get along, and they were trying to push something that I was like, absolutely not. So, we hop ship, and I'm super happy where we're at now.
That's a great option, Taylor. Thank you. Yeah, if we can find a way to be proactive, it's sort of like reflecting at the end of the day how it could be better. It's sort of allowing yourself to reflect ahead, right? It's so hard because we're dealing with crisis all the time. We're in like crisis and avoid crisis mode, but if you could just get ahead in some of this, it could be so much better. So I think that's fantastic. Thank you guys, for all of you, for sharing. If you have any questions of any of the speakers that are up here, and I want to say one last thing before we thank our speakers, is one thing that really struck me today and continues to strike me about this community is that none of us are sitting around waiting for this knight in shining armor to come in on their white horse and, sweep us away and solve our problems. We all want to be part of solving the problems that plague our community, the problems that our loved ones are facing. And I just love that, because I feel like the world is sort of the opposite, right? Everybody wants someone else to fix their problems, but I love that all of us are here. The fact that you are here, got out of bed, put on pants, came to this meeting, and are really, trying to make a difference in the life of someone with LGS. It just shows your love and your compassion and your commitment to them, but also your commitment to making the world a better place and not just taking it lying down. So I love that about this community. And I want to give our speakers a big round of applause. Thank you so much. And we'll see you at the reception. Thank you.